The screaming wouldn't stop. It echoed through the concrete halls of ADX Florence like a ghost trapped in steel. The guards didn't flinch, they'd heard it before. But tonight, something was different. In cell 213, a man named Michael Reddington was pounding his fists against the wall until they bled. "You can't keep me here forever," he shouted, his voice cracking under the weight of years spent alone. The lights flickered, the air vents hummed, and then, silence. Moments later, one of the guards found a note wedged under the steel door. It wasn't supposed to be possible, no paper, no pens, no contact. Yet somehow, Michael had managed to send a message. The note read, "There's a way out. And I found it." The guard froze. No one had ever escaped ADX Florence. Not once. The prison was built to crush both body and mind. They called it the place beyond redemption. But Michael wasn't like the others. He had a plan that would expose the cracks in America's most secure prison. Before the guard could report what he found, the power went out across cell block Delta. Cameras flickered off. Doors buzzed. Somewhere inside that darkness, Michael whispered, "It's time." And then the alarms began to scream. 5 years earlier, before he was locked in the most feared prison in the country, Michael Reddington was just another face in a mugshot. He'd been a tech engineer from Chicago, brilliant, quiet, and impossible to read. But after a massive financial cybercrime scandal involving stolen government data, he became a federal target. The FBI called him the Ghost. He called himself a man cleaning up the system. When agents finally caught him in Denver, he didn't fight. He just smiled and said, "You'll never keep me contained." They didn't believe him. They sent him to ADX Florence, a place designed for the worst of the worst. Terrorists, mob leaders, serial killers. A living tomb for those the government never wanted to see again. The first day Michael arrived, he was stripped, searched, and sealed into a 7 by 12-foot cell. Solid concrete. No window. Just a slit of sunlight that cut across the wall like a scar. A voice came through the speaker. "Welcome to Florence. You're now property of the Supermax." For months, Michael spoke to no one. His meals came through a slot in the door. His only exercise was an hour in a cage outside, alone, under armed watch. But what the guards didn't know was that Michael was studying everything. The timing of their rotations. The power surges during lockdown. The structure of the ventilation shafts. He wasn't losing his mind. He was building a plan. One night, a new guard named Harris walked past Michael's cell. "Why are you always smiling, man?" he asked through the bars. Michael looked up, eyes dark and hollow. "Because I already know how this ends," he said softly. From that night on, Harris started watching him. Something about Michael didn't fit. He wasn't violent like the others. He didn't scream or break things. He waited, patiently, like someone who knew time was on his side. When Harris checked the surveillance logs, he noticed small glitches. Cameras freezing for half a second. Lights flickering every few days, only in Michael's block. The electricians said it was normal, but Harris wasn't convinced. Then one morning, during inspection, he found something strange in Michael's cell. The air vent screws were perfectly aligned, except one. It was slightly off. When Harris touched it, the screw turned, smoothly, deliberately. That's when he realized. Michael had been dismantling the cell from the inside out. By the time the warden found out, it was too late. Michael had vanished. His bed was neatly made, his meal untouched. The camera footage was blank from midnight to dawn. No alarms, no breach, nothing. He had simply disappeared, inside the most secure prison in the United States. The FBI arrived within hours. Every inch of the prison was searched. Drones, dogs, heat sensors. Nothing. And then, at 3:17 a.m., a call came through the control room phone. A voice whispered, distorted and cold. "You can build all the walls you want. But hell can't hold the devil forever." The line went dead. Outside, in the endless desert surrounding ADX Florence, a lone figure walked along the highway shoulder, wearing a torn prison uniform. His hands were bleeding. His eyes were burning. And on his lips was that same quiet smile. The cameras never saw him leave. The world was told it never happened. But the truth was buried deep inside the prison files labeled top secret. Because the system had been beaten, and they couldn't let anyone know. The sun hadn't even risen when the prison sirens wailed again. The entire complex of ADX Florence went into lockdown. Guards with rifles ran through the corridors. Red lights flashed across the steel doors. Someone had escaped. That was supposed to be impossible. Warden David Mills stormed into the control room, his face pale. "Find him," he barked. "I want every inch of this place searched, again." The monitors showed every cell, every hallway, every corner of the yard. Nothing. The cameras were back online, but the last 5 hours of footage had vanished. Completely wiped. "How could one man take down the entire surveillance system?" an officer asked. The warden clenched his jaw. He didn't do it alone. Out in the Colorado desert, miles from the prison, a truck driver spotted something strange. A man walking barefoot, covered in dust, dragging a chain around his ankle. The driver slowed down, but before he could roll down his window, the man looked up. Those eyes, cold, sharp, unblinking. The driver froze. Then the man smiled, turned away, and vanished into the Rocky Hills. When the driver called it in, the FBI swarmed the area within an hour. Helicopters thundered overhead. Drones scanned the canyons. But there was no sign of Michael Reddington. Only his footprints, leading straight toward the mountains. Back inside ADX Florence, Special Agent Lauren Chase arrived to lead the investigation. She had been part of the original task force that caught Michael years ago. She knew his mind better than anyone, and she hated it. "This wasn't just an escape," she said, looking at the schematics on the wall. "He wanted us to know he could do it." She examined Michael's cell herself. Every detail told a story: the bent vent screw, the melted camera wires, the scratch marks on the concrete floor. Then she noticed something odd carved into the wall, right above the steel bed frame. A set of numbers, 12 to 19, 7. "What's that?" a guard asked. Agent Chase whispered, "It's a code, the same pattern he used when he hacked the Department of Defense servers." She turned to the warden. "He's not done yet." By nightfall, a storm rolled over the Rockies. Thunder cracked, rain pounded against the desert floor. Out there, somewhere in the dark, Michael was watching. He had found a small abandoned mine shaft, his shelter from the storm. Inside, he lit a match. The flame flickered across a piece of folded paper he had carried from the prison. On it were the words, "Project Cerberus, ADX Internal AI Program." Michael's hands trembled. That was the secret he had been imprisoned for, the truth no one was supposed to see. Before he was captured, Michael had discovered files showing that ADX Florence wasn't just a prison. It was part of a classified government experiment, an artificial intelligence system designed to predict and control human behavior through surveillance and psychological manipulation. ADX was the test site, and the inmates, they were the test subjects. Meanwhile, Agent Chase was piecing together her own puzzle. She learned that a few weeks before Michael's escape, a new computer mainframe had been installed under the prison. No one knew who authorized it. When she tried to access its files, the system flashed a single message. "Access denied. Level 9 clearance required." Level 9 clearance didn't exist, not officially. "What the hell are they hiding in this place?" she muttered. Then she received a call from Washington. "Agent Chase," the voice said coldly, "drop the Florence case. Effective immediately." She froze. "Sir, with respect, we have an escaped inmate." "Not anymore. The case is sealed under national security. Walk away." The line went dead. But Lauren Chase wasn't the type to walk away. That night, she broke protocol and drove straight to the archives room, deep beneath the prison. With a flashlight in one hand and her badge in the other, she searched the dusty cabinets. Finally, she found it, a file stamped top secret, Cerberus program. She opened it slowly. Inside were pages of data, photographs of inmates wired with electrodes, and psychological reports marked behavioral manipulation success, 87%. Her hands shook. "What did they do to these people?" she whispered. Then she saw something that made her blood run cold. A picture of Michael Reddington, strapped to a metal chair, wires running from his head to a glowing computer terminal. The caption read, "Subject 0, AI synchronization achieved." Suddenly, the lights flickered. A low humming filled the room. The computer screens turned on by themselves. Then a voice, calm, familiar, spoke through the speakers. "Hello, Agent Chase. I told you we'd meet again." She froze. "Michael." "I left the prison," the voice said. "But I never left the system." The screens began to flash lines of code. The security doors clicked open and shut on their own. The power grid surged. Michael's voice grew colder. "You wanted the truth about ADX Florence. Then you'll have to come and find me, before they erase it all." Outside, lightning lit up the desert sky. Somewhere in the distance, a figure stood on a cliff overlooking the prison. Michael Reddington watched as helicopters circled overhead. He whispered to himself, "Let them look. They built hell, and now they're the ones trapped in it." And as the storm raged, the lights of ADX Florence began to flicker again, one by one, until the entire prison went dark.